Welcome back to Brent's Hang. I'm Brent Barnett. Today is our 8th episode of our hardware makeover series. Now, for those of you that aren't familiar with what this is the video where you guys send me videos and pictures of your kit, and that's to brenthang.gibraltar@gmail.com, and I choose one each month to remake in my own way using Gibraltar Hardware, but I'm keeping all of your stuff exactly the same. Well, as close as I can get to it. So, let's see who this month's drummer is. Dude, this looks like a bill. Yeah, it is. It's your cell bill, dude. And it looks like you went over on your data plan. You ought to think about going green. You know, they can email this stuff to you now. It's really easy. Oh, here we go. Dude. Joshua Barrios. This has to be probably one of the more unique setups that I've seen recently, which is why I chose this one. He's actually using a Gibraltar rack, which is a 3-sided rack, but the front part of the rack is actually a V-bar. Now on the left side, he's got his 12 and 13-inch snare. The 12-inch snare is below, and the 13-inch snare is above. And these are both mounted to the rack. Now directly next to the 12-inch snare, which is on the bottom, is the 10-inch rack tom. Now the 10-inch rack tom is mounted about 2 inches higher than the snare, so he can play everything on the same plane. He doesn't have to lift his hand up much. And this is splitting the space in between the 14 and the 12. Now, just above the 10-inch tom, we have his LP Toys, which is the jam block, and the mountable tambourine. His left main crash, and that is overshadowing our splash stacker. And then right in front, he has his hi-hats mounted. He's using a remote hi-hat, and he's got his hi-hat placed right where most people place their rack tom, which is very cool because you don't have to worry about getting your hands crossed up and getting fouled up and sticks hitting each other. This is a very cool placement. So he's got his ride cymbal mounted directly over the bass drum, which is in a really perfect playing position. And it's mounted to its own stand that's also connected to the rack. Now he's got his right main crash, his right secondary crash, and his china on the far right. Now for his toms, he's got his 12 and 13 mounted like floor toms, which is awesome. The 12-inch tom is utilizing its own stand because he needs to place that as close to his main snare as possible. If you look, they're almost touching, literally. So he only has to move flip his wrist over about 6 inches. It's brilliant, I love it, it's brilliant. So right next to the 12, he's got his 13-inch placed. So here it is, I done did it. Joshua, what do you think, man? Is it all right if I call you Josh? I feel like we're on the same wavelength now. Okay, I'll call you Joshua. So Joshua's setup has a number of different levels with drums and with cymbals intermixed. And sometimes with a rack, it's difficult to mount everything to one bar and put them on completely different levels easily. So we're keeping everything on a rack. We're doing 2 side racks, but we're making it 2-tiered. So I've got 2 legs on each foot, 2 legs in the front, 2 legs in the back. Now, what I did was I took 20-inch bars for the upper tier, which is the outside, and I took a 20-inch bar and cut it in half, and I got 2 10-inch bars for the lower tier on the inside. So this gives me that stair-step type of look. The outside, I'm using a 46-inch curve bar for the upper tier, and on the inside, I'm using a 40-inch curve bar for the upper tier. Same thing for both sides. Now, let's start with the 12-inch. I got the 12-inch with a snare basket mounted directly to the bottom tier. The 13-inch snare drum just made sense to put on the upper tier. Now the 10-inch tom, this one made sense too to mount off the bottom tier. So now let's go up to the Percussion Toys. I've got them separated, mounted using their own mounts. I didn't have to do that. I just wanted to do that because I'm quirky like that. Joshua's got his mounted to one rod. So what I did was I took a cymbal down tube with a tilter and I mounted an L-arm in there, and I used that for both the jam block and the mountable tambourine. Then we have our left main crash, which is mounted to the top tier of the crossbar. And then our splash stacker is actually mounted out of the front leg of the top tier. So I used an RBA to cap right over the end of the 20-inch bar. The front leg of the bottom tier, I'm using to mount my X-Hat. Yes, I know. You're calling me out right now because I don't have a remote hi-hat stand up here. But what can I do? We don't have a remote hi-hat stand, but we're working on one. So just bear with me on this. So I'm using an X-Hat. This is the SC4425XHMB. Just imagine a cable coming from here. Next, we have our right side. Our ride cymbal is mounted over the bass drum directly out of the front short leg. Then I've got my right main crash mounted directly out of the back upper tier leg. And then my secondary right crash and my china are both mounted to the top back tier. Now I've got my two rack toms. I've got those mounted on the inside rack because I need them to be low. Now if you notice, on the left side, I mounted the lower tier rack bar on the inside of the legs. On the right side, I mounted the lower tier rack bar on the outside of the leg. I needed to get this 12-inch tom as close as I could to my main snare. So this made me get that extra 1.5 inches that I was grasping for. Now I've got the 13 mounted directly to the lower tier, which finishes out the kit. So what's really cool about this is that I still have tons of space where I can add more drums, more cymbals, and more accessories. I've got a part of the space left on my top tier and bottom tier on the left and right sides. So here are the product highlights for this month's hardware makeover. We have the quick release T-leg assembly, the SC GCS QC LT LA. It's a long one, I know. We have the SC GPR20, which is a 20-inch bar. We have the SC GPR46C, which is a 46-inch curve. We have a SC GPR40C, which is a 40-inch curve. And we have the SC GCR QT, which is the quick release T-clamp that allows us to add that extra leg on each of the T-legs. And we have a right angle clamp, which is the SC GCRA, which is what we're connecting all the crossbars to the verticals with. And then we also have the SC4425XHMB, which is our makeshift remote hi-hat stand, which is actually our X-Hat. Well, that's it for this month's episode of Hardware Makeover. This is number 8. We made it through 8 already. Right on. Joshua, thank you very much for submitting. And I had a blast trying to figure out what I was going to do with your kit, but I think it came together pretty well. You guys can be the judge of that. Be nice. But for those of you that have submitted or are looking to submit, please submit brentzhang.gibraltar@gmail.com. And for those of you that have already submitted, I just said it a second ago, make sure you just keep watching because you never know. You could be next month because I've just got a bunch of drum kits that I'm just sitting here waiting to make on a list, and you never know, you might be the next dude or the next bill that comes through on a cell phone. I don't know. See you next time.